Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Tabitha Akor. Let's begin. Tonight, we take our attention to Amazonia's Bamenda, where daily life is unfolding under pressure and uncertainty has become routine. In the early hours of Monday, another explosion rocks Nkwen market, one of the city's busiest trading hubs. No lives are lost this time, but the message is clear: fear still lingers. And for many residents, safety is never guaranteed. It is the third blast in recent weeks, each one chipping away at confidence in a city already on an edge. Across town, frustration is spilling into the street. Women stage protests over prolonged power outages, forcing anger and voicing over what they describe as neglect and hardship. For families and small business owners, the blackout is more than an inconvenience. It is a daily disruption to income, survival, and dignity. And then there is the airport. Once silent for years due to the ongoing war, Bamenda's airport is now reopening, revived for a high-profile papal visit and presented as a symbol of hope. Authorities say it will remain operational, but for many Amazonians, hope is cautious. The same insecurity that grounded flight in 2019 has not disappeared, and questions remain over whether this reopening marks a lasting shift or a temporary show of stability. Now, this is the reality in Bamenda tonight, a city navigating explosions, protests, and promises of progress all at once. For residents here, life goes on, but not without tension, resilience, and a constant search for what normal should feel like again. Well, let's head into the prime headlines on Undaunted. Explosion hits Bamenda's Nkwen market, raises fresh security concerns. Tonight we'll take a look at Bamenda Airport to remain operational after papal visit, Bishop Nkea says. Also tonight we'll take a look at Meme women protest, prolonged power outage, demand urgent action. Also tonight, we'll take our attention to the report we brought last week. Biya signs law creating office of Vice President, reform or succession plan. Also tonight on African scene, Wadagni secures overwhelming victory in Benin presidential election amid low urban turnout. Also on global scene, US-Iran signal return to talks as port blockade falls to halt diplomacy. Well, we'll head on to the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. An early morning explosion struck Nkwen market in Bamenda 3 on Monday, April 13th, damaging part of the busy commercial hub and intensifying fears among residents. The blast occurred before traders fully opened for the day and no injuries were reported. Residents say the incident marks the third explosion in recent weeks around the market area, heightening anxiety over safety in one of Bamenda's most active trading centers. The latest explosion follows recent security incidents in the city. Days earlier, security forces safely detonated an improvised explosive device near a filling station, while another device was defused at the entrance of Nkwen market last week. Authorities had yet to issue an official statement as of first time. Security presence around the market was visibly increased after the blast. Nkwen market, which serves thousands of traders and buyers daily, has experienced repeated security threats since war began in 2016. Now, this is the report we are having right here, but then we'll be having our commentator, Barrister Mbeseha, dissecting all the reports we'll be having right here tonight. Barrister Mbeseha, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Good
no sound. When you get to your sound. No sound.
Mbeseha.
No sound.
Okay, I believe the technical should help us with the sound. Our commentator needs to hear us. Well, we'll move over to the next report. The Bamenda airport will continue to function after Pope Leo XIV's visit. The Archbishop of Bamenda, His Grace Andrew Nkea, said on Sunday, citing assurance from authorities. Speaking on state media, Archbishop Nkea said discussions are ongoing with officials to determine how many flights will serve Bamenda weekly once the Pope departs. It will not be abandoned again, he stated. The airport ceased operations in 2019 after reports that a Camaro flight was attacked during takeoff. The incident forced a complete halt to commercial flights, leaving the facility dormant for years. Now, ahead of the Papal visit, the airport has undergone extensive renovation and upgrades to meet international standards. The improvements were undertaken to accommodate the Pope's arrival and related delegations. Archbishop Nkea's remarks come amid public speculation that the airport would close again once the high-profile visit ends. The assurance signals an attempt to restore regular air service, which has lacked commercial flights since 2019. Officials have not yet released a flight schedule on named airlines that will operate in Bamenda Road. Once again, we have our legal mind, Barrister Mbeseha, right here to give us his comment on this report. Barrister Mbeseha, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Good evening, sir. All right, we'll move over to our next report. At Meme, women of Banrumbi Gang in Meme Division on Tuesday staged a protest over prolonged electricity outages, blocking a key road and disrupting traffic flow. The demonstrators took to the streets early in the day, expressing frustration over persistent power cuts and have affected households, businesses, and daily activities in the community. They called for immediate intervention to restore stable electricity supply. The protest led to temporary traffic disruption as residents barricaded the road, attracting attention from local authorities. The senior divisional officer for Meme, Chamberlain Ndong, later arrived at the scene to engage the protesters. He acknowledged concerns over the electricity situation and appealed for calm. Following discussions, the protesters agreed to reopen the road and disperse peacefully. The SDO also issued a 24-hour ultimatum to the electricity utility company, instructing it to restore power to the affected community within the deadline. Well, do we have Barrister Mbeseha with us? Barrister Mbeseha. Well, we'll see. Good evening, Barrister Mbeseha. Do we have you now? All right, to move over. The Archbishop of Bamenda, Nkea, says the Pope has already begun to perform miracles even before arriving in French Cameroon, pointing to a rare moment of unity between Ambazonia State Army and the government forces. Speaking on the anticipation of the Papal visit, the Archbishop noted that both sides in the conflict are now expressing a shared desire for peace. For the first time in 10 years, Ambazonia government and French Cameroon government are speaking the same language. He said that this is a miracle if the Pope's visit, and for the Pope's visit because everybody wants peace. His remarks highlight growing hopes that the Pope's visit could encourage dialogue and reduce tensions in the region where war has persisted for years. The Vatican's visit is expected to draw widespread attention as religious leaders, officials, and communities look to it as a moment for reconciliation and calm. Do we have Barrister Mbeseha? All right, Barrister Mbeseha. We seem to lose Barrister Mbeseha. Well, we'll move right over to our next report. French Cameroon has officially created the office of Vice President after President Paul Biya signed the law into effect. The new law was already approved by Parliament 2 weeks ago. It now gives the President the power to appoint a Vice President who will act as Deputy Head of State and step in if needed. The move comes at a time when there is growing political discussion about who may lead the country in the future. Some earlier reports had suggested that the president's son, Frank Emmanuel Biya, could be linked to the new rule, but this has not been confirmed by government officials. Authorities have also not given clear details about how the appointment will be made or who is being considered, which has added to public debate and speculation. Supporters of the law say it could help ensure smoother leadership and better coordination in government. But critics say the timing raises questions and want clearer rules on how future leadership changes with it will be handled. Now, opposition voices and analysts are also calling for more transparency, saying that major decisions like these should have clearer public explanation to avoid uncertainty. For now, attention is on the presidency, as many wait to see who will be appointed to the new position and what it could mean for the country's political future. Observers say the coming weeks will be important, ensuring whether this is simply an administrative change or a major shift in French Cameroon's leadership direction. Hello, Barrister. Do we have you now? Thank you very much, Barrister. Good to have you. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Well, we've had so many reports already, but then it's good to have you back. Reported emerging claims that Frank Emmanuel Biya, the son of President Paul Biya, could be positioned as a potential successor in connection with discussions around the creation of a vice presidential office. In your remarks last week, you categorically stated it was up to French Cameroon's government to elect anyone they wishes. Now, looking at the tides, now that Parliament has adopted the bill and the President, Paul Biya, has signed it into law, formally establishing the office of Vice President, how should we interpret these developments? Do they point to a structured succession plan or simply a constitutional administrative reform? And what do you think the coming days may reveal about possible appointment and political direction?
Well, we know that my personal view is that it doesn't change much. First, the only thing it changes is that it makes Paul Biya the king of Cameroon. Who is a king? A king is a person who, upon death or resignation, appoints his or her successor. The Queen of England died, for example. Queen Elizabeth just died. Charles became the king by appointment, not by elections. And so Cameroon claims to be a constitutional democracy in the simple fact that there's a constitution that guides it. But the constitution is a piece of paper that has no meaning. Whether you sign it into law or not, the lines have been drawn long before. We've seen how people were positioned in advance, be it Ngongo, be it from Biya or anybody else. They were seeking to be positioned as successors. In democracy, we don't succeed. People are elected. And so whoever is appointed, meaning, because the law already defines the constitution, the amendment already says what he can do. In short, simple language, he will only do what the president wants him to do. The president will assign whatever functions he wants. And it was, since they are not defined, it's about constitution allowed to delegate his actions to any life. Government minister, even his wife, that is in their constitution. And so the vice president has no meaning because the president decides to keep him in the box. Yeah, like they have kept the prime minister in the box today. You have no effect. And so there's not much that has changed. The other has changed in that we are now sure that upon Biya's death, upon his resignation, or whatever thing you want to call it, will dictate who follows him next. And like any other kingdom, if I do that, we must room, house, or some other person other than my family. No. And if you follow social media debates on the topic, the main reason for which he does this, if social media discussions are correct, from the CPD take death to protect his. And so if the presidential plan must be protected, who is the best for that person? Is the daughter, the son, the wife, or the widow. If the spouse were there, the president would know it for protection. He or she died. And so it is all a sham. There's nobody who believes in that except Paul Biya himself. And sooner or later, it is very clear. Yesterday we talked about the visit of the Pope. And I said something in passing. I remarked that usually when heads of states come around, like the like the Pope, who is the head of state of the Vatican, and is to go around other towns in the country. Normally, that head of state is accompanied by the host head of state. In Cameroon, the host is President Paul Biya. But the Pope is coming a few days, in 2 days' time. They are not going to see Paul Biya in Bamenda. They are not going to see Paul Biya in Douala. They are not going to see him anywhere else. Who thinks that this man is a living president? No, actually a dead person. Death does not mean that he must be buried. He is so incapacitated he can no longer be called a human being. Otherwise, we explain the fact that a foreign head of state comes around. It's not anywhere. No, which is public, is the president, the Pope will visit him in his palace for a courtesy call. They come and say, Opa, how you doing? No? That's all about that. So those who still worry about Paul Biya, those who call that name, are those people who want to use that name to make benefits. That's just all. That's just all. Because right now, even what they call signing, that sure that he promulgated it. What is the presidential signature? The president doesn't sign nothing. Engraved on the stamp. He puts it there. The stamp is there. We have online signatures. Saying that he promulgated it as if he sat up like you and me are talking, and he promulgated it, it will be a sham. This is the highest rate. I'm not saying this coming anywhere else in the world like that. That's coming in the first order. And in this case, it will be the second order. For those who don't know history, Yufo Boane, a French puppet that was put in the Côte d'Ivoire, died. He died physically, but they never announced his death until 3 or 4 years after. Officially, he was still there, but he had been buried. It's never been repeated. Those who doubt it can doubt it. Let them show us Paul Biya sitting somewhere or in a hospital sick, or in queues, being carried to the mortuary. They will not do that. And so again, this is the first order. Over to you.
Mbeseha.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, okay, let's take you back to the earlier report we had. An explosion has just occurred in Nkwen market, and this is just a testament to the rising level of insecurity in Bamenda. And with this being the third explosion in recent weeks as reported, what does this tell us about the evolving security situation in Bamenda, Barrister Mbeseha?
Yeah, that would suggest, as I said yesterday, there's no security. This is Nkwen. This is not happening. This is not happening in Kambe, in Bansol. It is happening in Nkwen. Nkwen is in the middle of the town. This is supposed to be doing security to prepare for the visit of the country. The post there on Thursday. If you see have this stuff inside town, an explosion, what does it tell you? They can fake security, but there's no security. The presidential security for the Pope, but there's no security for the ordinary woman selling in the market. There's no security for somebody going to Bamboo or going to Santa. This is all it is. And that is, if they cannot manage the security in town, now that everybody from Yaoundé and even Bolshoms in terms of security in Bamenda, an explosion is still happening in Nkwen, in the middle of town, and they are unable to arrest anybody. They are unable to say anything. That speaks. There is no security. There is no security in Bamenda. And if there is no security in Bamenda at this time of the year, at this time of the day, at this time of the week, when the foreign head of state is coming, then there is no security anywhere else in Amazonia. There is no security anywhere in short. And so, if you secure Bamenda now, how do you expect them to secure Mamfe, Tibo, talk less of people in the Biya and acquire? No security anywhere said this. Well, does not spare war, does not spare that war, consequences of the war. I'm sure Papal who are Bamenda, let the Pope come and talk peace. There's no security in Bamenda. There's no security until the war ends. This is a message which is being sent to the because there, his physical self is not there, but we saw people already. We're blind to these sort of things. The theme of the bishop's visit to Bamenda is peace. The Pope, in his honest mind, with his advisor, can there be peace? Can they talk about peace? Explosions in the open market, in the middle of town, where the Pope himself is coming to visit, where the Pope has already bought his security, his guards in town. The answer is no. No peace, no security, no security, no justice, no. That's a simple answer. It's been sent. That is a simple warning that has been sent across the world. We have long since passed Biya. We are not only telling foreign visitors that as you come in and preach peace, this is the peace you want. The Pope might still be sitting there in the cathedral while another explosion takes off in Nkwen, or even in Santa, or even in some other street in Bamenda. And so, Mr. Pope, you are welcome. That's the town to which you are coming. These are the symptoms of the peace that you are coming to preach in Bamenda. Over to you.
Well, Barrister Mbeseha, let's take a look at this report. Definitely security situation in Bamenda is gradually becoming appalling, but then we want to take our attention to the preparations relating to the ongoing visit of the Pope. We see that there are new developments coming up, especially the Bamenda airport, which is set to resume operations ahead of Pope's visit. So how do you view these new developments? Because the airport has stopped functioning for some years now, since 2019. What are the guarantees for safety, Barrister Mbeseha?
No, the whole thing is related to the Pope. The Pope is not coming to remain permanently in Bamenda. The airport shut 2019. But prior to being shut down, how many planes landed in the airport in Bamenda in a month? Talk less of a year. And so when the Pope, they are doing that because the Papal plane will land there to bring all the security, to bring the Pope's car, to bring anything that you need. After that, that's the end of it. Because for an airport to be operational, it requires more than just putting tar on the streets. No. Bamenda, if it's an airport, is just one of the several airports in Cameroon. There's one in Garoua. I think there's one in Gaoundéré. How many of those things are operational throughout the year? When they say operational, how many planes land there? Those are internal, those are airports that are meant for internal flights. There's only one domestic airline in Cameroon, what they call Cameco. Cameco has no plane of its own. So who will be running? Where are they going to get the plane? They charter the planes, put their stamp on them, and then they fly for a few days. They are unable to pay the rents. The people will take their planes back. And so it is a sham to think that the airport will start. Why did it shut down in the first place? Either they lack the equipment, which I'm sure they didn't have, or secondarily, they shut it down because, to the best of our knowledge, Bafut, what they call the Bafut airport, is it Bafut? Yes, has become the burial ground where mass graves are found. It shut down, but it did not shut down for the military. They came with their helicopters, lifted the people they wanted to carry to the hospitals, or the dead, their soldiers dead, and dug mass graves for people to be buried there. And so the airport is going to be something like on air, which supplies electricity. People cry here, we have no electricity, they go and bring something they call a transformer, they plant it there in 24 hours, it blows off. And of course, people say they have light. So who is going to fly into Bamenda airport and on what planes and on what conditions? Where is security? After this, everybody goes away. Bamenda airport, I said this. Bafut airport is today. What closed down Bali airport? That was one airport we knew there in Bamenda there. What shut down Bali airport? Yes, for what nobody knows. What shut down Manfred airport? For years and years since the 60s. What shut down Tico airport? So what killed Bali? What killed Bisonabang? What killed Tico will kill Bamenda airport? Bamenda is not different from These ones I've mentioned. So it's a scam. These are all tactical things, propaganda, deceive the world in general, to deceive ambassadors in particular, and mostly to deceive the Bamenda. Because as they claim to saw something happen in Bamenda, they were arguing among themselves. This is called Bafo. It should be called Nkwen Airport. What do you make? They can make the argument. But what was the fun of Nkwen, who was in the central committee, everything in Bamenda, when they named the thing Bafo Airport, where he had all the powers in the CPDM? Where was he? Where was he? He was all there. That's the wrong airport that was not over there. Where was Philemon Yao as the prime minister? Where was Achille Achu? When those things changed, Achille Achu, they all come from Bamenda, no? And so that airport, in terms of airport, it go the way that Tico went. It will go the same way that Manfi went. It will go the same way that Bali went. The people will leave. You will there for 5 hours, go away. So, to everything that comes with it. Kameko will hardly ever land there. They will carry who in the first place? People are so poor. Who is going to fly in that nonsense? Over to you.
It's not an abstract reality, Barrister Mbeseha, as you've just stated. It's progressive, and we fear what happened to the other cities would definitely happen in Bamenda. But anyway, from that, let's bring you over to this report we spoke about. Meme women are protesting over power outage, and they've gone ahead to block roads in Bamenda. But then we see that the senior divisional officer issued a 24 ultimatum after the people's outrage as a result of that, and to the electricity utility company. Now, do you believe, Barrister Mbeseha, that concrete measures will be taken if the electricity utility company fails to restore electricity within the set time? The people are angry at the moment. What do you think about that?
The duo, let me tell you honestly, the duo has no competence to give an ultimatum to Onel. The DO or even the administrative officials, they are not in charge of private companies. O'Neill, that supplies electricity, is the private company. They don't take instructions from the prefect. Their own orders come from their board of directors, not prefects or sous-prefects. I watched that thing myself, and I laughed at it. The poor prefect, he comes there. I said, well, we order that electricity. So if they can order the electricity to come back, it means they order it to be cut. They stopped it in the first place. Because you cannot order what you do not control. If they must be able to order it to come back, it means they are in control. They were able to order it to stop. And so the charades, see the portal where the women are sitting there. Where on earth will people have to go on strike for goods that they will consume and pay? Why? And the excuse is they purported to bring a transformer there, which blew up and they carried it to go and repair it. It has never come back. The question is, are these transformers manufactured somewhere in Douala by Onel? Or they are bought? They are bought. Are these not the same transformers that supply electricity in Europe and other civilized parts of the world? They are. Why should Onel go and buy junk transformers and put there? They are bought. They don't manufacture their own unless they've created their own wooden transformers that make it out of wood from Beto and so on and so forth. But they have not. They go and buy it. If the transformer will cost, for example, 10 million francs, they go and buy one for 200,000. A junk transformer. Put it there, will blow up the next day. And then they will go back to square one. It's a country which is being managed by thieves, properly trained, orchestrated thieves. Because again, that's Onel. If you see the salary of the Onel general manager and the staff who work there, they bribe to work there because their salary is high. But they are not yet satisfied with that. They want you to give bribe. We talked of the transformers in Biya not long ago, where there was no electricity. They came and pulled the transformer away to their office and all called on the people to come and bribe them to come and put it back. Why would it be different somewhere else in Kumba? Why would it be different in Cambe Home or somewhere else? Why? Why? We never had this when we had power camp. And we'll never have this when we go back and re-establish power camp and put more power stations for Amazonia. This is the deal again, I say here openly. Mr. Prefet has no authority to tell O'Neill what to do. That is not within his competence. You can go and talk to the mayor. Those are his subjects. You can go and talk to the sous-prefects. Those are his subjects. He has no power to order O'Neill, or Camwater. Those are private companies incorporated by law. There's nowhere in the organogram of those companies that the prefect has control over them. You should declare no doubt, but that is not part of your territory. That's not part of your territory. They don't render account to the prefect. They don't render account even to the minister of territorial administration. They render account even from the about to the minister of energy, whatever thing you call it. And so that is sham. The prefect is just, I feel sorry for them, because you cannot come there and say, well, I don't know what to do. He fakes an answer and then goes away. Because if truly his own house was on that stretch of the road, he himself will have no electricity unless he bought his own private generator. If his house was on that stretch of the road, he himself will have no water unless he decided to make a borehole for himself. And this is the government of thieves again, I say. This is the prefect of Meme. Just last year, we remember, on the eve of the election, the two others were inaugurating a gas plant in Bamenda that they were going to bottle gas. Elections are passed. We not see a single bottle of gas from Bamenda. Who inaugurated that thing? Whoever came there, the prefect was there with him. These are thieves. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Barrister Mbeseha, for that constructive input right there. Well, then let's move over to this very important report. Ahead of Pope Leo's visit to Bamenda, Bishop Nkea is stating that a miracle is already unfolding, one of peace and unity. And then he sees that Pope's visit is bringing a sense of unity and peace between colonial French Cameroon government and Ambazonian government. Barrister Mbeseha, given the current tensions and war, seeing this realignment between Ambazonian government and French Cameroon position ahead of Pope's visit, as Bishop Nkea has said, this is his statement. How do you assess the durability of this sudden shared language of peace? In your take, to clarify, what's the Ambazonian government stand on the said visit?
The language of the Ambazonian government, if I can summarize in my own words, peace is not the question of talking. Peace is perceived. Peace is seen. You don't need to go to Bamenda, for example, to tell somebody that there's peace when there's an explosion blowing up in Nkwen in the night. You don't need to go to Mbalangi and pretend that there's peace when the night before they shot and killed 6 people in the bar. So talking is not enough. Action is what brings peace. Talking might be the beginning. As I said yesterday, the Pope will come and talk. He will coin his language in the best that he can. But do you expect that thing to take effect beginning 17 or 18 or 19, 2 days after he left? It might be, but it will hardly be. If they started the talks that day, the evening of the Pope being there, that would not have brought peace. It's a long process, which Cameroon has sought at all times to evade, until they embrace peace by practical terms in doing the things that are necessary. No conversion, no preaching of the gospel will help the situation. And so the Archbishop can say what he likes. And that is our hope. I said sometimes last week that a human being who ceases to hope has ceased to be a human being. We're just hoping that this visit will bring a change of mind. Not a change of mind to Ambazonians. Ambazonians have never refused peace. Will bring a change of mind to the aggressors, to the people who have hunted us, to the people who have burned down our villages, to the people who have stolen from us, to the people who have done all what you can enumerate everywhere. This war would even bring it upon us. And if you are fleeing into the forest, do you just come back home because somebody has said there's peace? No. These who abandoned their homes because they were burnt, they will not just come back the next day. They need to build. And how will they rebuild? We don't know where they will get the money. But if you go through the records, you find out year one day, as of this point, they are taking loans from all over the world and claiming to rebuild Amazonia. But you go to every single village, to every single quarter, you don't find anything which is rebuilding. They tried to say they were building bridges. There's no bridge. The amount of bridge, they will not put on top there. They tried to say they were rebuilding schools. They will come there, they will put some zinc on top of the roof, and they walk away. So the process is long. Normalcy is not returning so soon. But it will return. People will be confident to go back home and rebuild. If they are sure, somebody in Nkwen, for example, what is stored there, who will prepare to go to Njange's house, take more money and come and try to rebuild his or her store. If they are sure that will not be destroyed the next day. Somebody whose house was burnt will prepare to take a loan, go and cut the bamboos to make thatches, whatever thing he wants, to rebuild if he's sure that the house will not be burnt the next day. And so, peace is a process. We welcome the Pope. We welcome the hope. And they want this thing, peace. I'm sure they understand what they're doing. They know exactly what they were doing. But Andrew of this thing. He was in Malfi when the war started. People died. Andrew was incorporated into the Grand National Dialogue. He sat there on that chair. And so he himself lied. Andrew was incorporated to be a peace mission, to be given a peace mission. He traveled to the United States and somewhere else. He traveled everywhere to convince ambassadors that the war should end. It has not ended. So Andrew is a living witness of what he's talking about. And so he understands those things. It is he who told us that the Grand National Dialogue went there. He was told by late Chief Mokete that the Northwest cannot live with the Southwest. That is his own testimony. That's he, the bishop. It is he, the bishop, who went and told Paul Biya through Ngongo publicly. We saw it on the video that they were accompanying Paul Biya before, during, and after the elections. Elections are over. Is there peace even in Cameroon resulting from the elections? No. Has he seen Paul Biya with his eyes? We have not been very happy to welcome Paul Biya along with the Pope in Bamenda. He would. He would. Because at least he's riding in a car that was given to him by Paul Biya that he never saw. He had not seen Paul Biya himself. But he come and give me a car and say this is from Paul Biya. And so we should cease deceiving ourselves until these people are prepared to change. The Pope can only talk. The Pope cannot turn a devil to an angel. I've said this before. But he can convert you. Because even in the Bible story, there's nothing which is not forgivable. Everything is forgivable. We don't want the peace of Herod the king, who was the judge, found Moses not guilty of anything, but nonetheless ordered the people to go and kill him if they so desired. We want the peace of the truth. Herod would have told the people, this guy has committed no sin, you cannot kill him. But he saw that the guy had committed no sin, he had committed no crime at all. So, well, let me wash my hands, take him to where you want, crucify him if you so wish. And they did. So, again, I mean, quoting from the Bible, you can go miles, you can go kilometers, and you know, and we pray, well, I've said this here, we see hope. The Pope is a moral personality. He can change heart minds, and he has changed heart minds before. We hope they will change theirs. They will change us. Our only hope, request of the ambassador to the Pope is to plead with Yahweh to come to the negotiation table. Even if it means the Vatican being the mediator, we are willing to go there. We are willing to go there. And I hope even with their bride. All right, over to you.
As it stands now, Barrister Mbeseha, is there any such thing as an alignment between Ambazonian State's government and the colonial French Cameroon government at this point ahead of the Pope's visit? We are hoping that his coming would bring them to the table, but at this point, is there any such thing as an alignment between the two governments?
To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing like an alignment. Because in the eyes of Yaoundé, they have said this publicly, we are terrorists, terrorizing them without any just cause. And they've also said, why do we talk to terrorists? Why do we need to talk to separatists? Well, they don't know that separation is legitimate. Separation is not a crime. When you are being absorbed, when you are being disseminated, you are free to fight to separate yourself from that danger. So the idea of separation is not a crime. But the only thing you can do is to ask, why is this not separating? Why? He's with me. Why is he separating? Why is this woman going away? Why is this man running away from the house? So a woman escaping the husband's house or the man running away from the family home, it's not a crime. Something went wrong somewhere which is causing he or she to run away. A child running away from the home to go and sleep outside is not a crime. It is what has caused the child to leave the home, to run outside, which is not being investigated. You cannot just come and catch a child from outside and start to beat the child. Well, why do you not sleep home? No. Ask the child, what happened? Maybe he will tell you, my mama did not give me food. Maybe he will tell them mosquitoes were biting me on the bed. And then you go and kill the bed bug, you kill the mosquitoes, or you make the mommy to give them food. And so this is where it is. To the best of my knowledge, there is nothing that we can do. We have done everything possible to talk with us. But they choose to talk to some people, which is what I say Andrew knows. They were in their own day under the Ghana National Dialogue. They chose the people they would talk to. Among them, Cardinal Bishop Andrew. It did not end the war. They went to Canada. They chose the people they would talk to. They didn't run away from it. And so, to the best of my knowledge, we are still hoping, if this evening, if this night that we speak, if President Paul Biya or his vice president took off his phone and call President Sako, Sako will gladly pick the call. We'll gladly pick the call even at midnight. So we're ready at any time, anywhere, anytime, we're ready for them. They should stop avoiding us. Because at the end of the day, after the separation, we remain neighbors. We have been put together to be neighbors. Naturally, we cannot create another ambassador somewhere in the desert. They cannot escape and create their own ambassador in the Atlantic Ocean and their own Cameroon in the Atlantic Ocean. They will be our neighbors for eternity because that's nature. Over to you.
Absolutely, Barrister Mbeseha. Now, do you see the Pope's visit as a genuine turning point for dialogue in southern Cameroon, or more of a temporary reaction to international attention that may fade? Most probably once the visit is over. I hear you seeking that the Pope would call for a dialogue for French Cameroon to come to the negotiation table. So do you believe this is going to be possible, or there's just the attention that comes with a Pope visiting Bamenda?
I think it could come. I can only speculate. Because when the Pope decides that he's coming to Cameroon, I've said it here before, the government of Yaoundé did not want him to go to Bamenda. It was not the choice of the government to say go to Bamenda. No. So he was going to Bamenda. When the bishops of Cameroon conceived the plan, the theme, I said the bishop will come to Bamenda, he will talk about peace. Yaoundé is aware of that. They are not being caught by surprise. So he knows that the Pope will talk about peace there. Why? Because there's war. If Yaoundé people, whom I'm sure they are human beings, they must have realized that they've come to the end of the undeniable. Something needs to happen to save them as well. Why the key ambassadors, they are not going scot-free, they too are dying. And so I think something can happen because the Pope's visit is based on peace, approved by them. Otherwise, you will not. You can imagine how much money they are spending themselves as Cameroon to fix the Bamenda, to deploy security there for the Pope, to be there for 5 hours only, doing what? Talking peace. And so if there's nothing wrong, there will no need for talking peace. Normal peace would have been going there. Why are they not talking peace in Bafoussam? Why are they not going talking peace in Garoua or in Bertua? So we hope something can happen. We can only speculate that they are having a change of mind. If Bamenda was praised Archbishop Andrew, who was and still a very active participant in what has been going on in Ambassador since 2016. He knows the facts clearly, even though he might twist his tongue, but he knows everything. And so if the Pope is coming to him, he visits the Vatican almost every time that he wants. We must imagine that he has talked to the Pope that, well, this is not possible. We don't try. It is true. Remember Archbishop Cleda, when he was the president of the Episcopal Council, he reported publicly on video that they had written to Paul Biya so many times that he could have an audience with them to talk about this thing, their so-called no-show. And the Paul Biya did not even reply to them. This is the Archbishop of Douala. The highest cleric that we ever had there was Christian Tumi, who said he had been trying it and he had been begging these people, let's sit down and talk. If you want to go away, what is wrong in going away? The people have the right to separate. Because rebellion is legitimate. This Cardinal Tumi telling them, tell us on audio. So the church has almost reached its pinnacle. But now that their boss, the supreme of the church, is coming, let us hope that he can make a dent in the hardened minds of the people. That's the only thing I can hope about.
Oh, Barrister Mbeseha. We hope that the coming of the Pope will definitely bring a level of peace, as we hope. But then we want to say thank you so much for being with us on the show tonight. Thank you for the extensive input and conversations you brought to the reports tonight. Thank you for the in-depth analysis you spoke on different reports we had tonight. Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha, and we look forward to having you on our shows subsequently.
Thank you very much for having me.
Head over to the rest of the news. Thank you. Romuald Wadagni has recorded a decisive victory in Benin's presidential election, securing 94% of the vote, according to provisional results released by the Electoral Commission. His main challenger, Paul Hokpe, conceded early, signaling acceptance of the outcome and urging national unity even before the final tally was completed. Despite the scale of the victory, voter turnout revealed disparities, particularly in urban centers where participation in some polling units ranged between 20 and 40%. Overall turnout reached 58.75%, with election observers describing the process as largely peaceful and well organized. Wadagni, who was backed by outgoing President Patrice Talon, is expected to sustain the country's current policy direction, following years of economic reforms and infrastructure development under Talon's administration. However, the new administration faces persistent structural challenges, including widespread poverty, a growing wealth gap, and escalating jihadist violence in northern regions. With presidential terms now extending to 7 years, the next election cycle is not expected until 2033. This provides Wadagni with a prolonged window to address security concerns and implement socio-economic reforms that could shape Benin's long-term stability. Also tonight, we'll take a look at the trial of Christopher Okello Ondium, the man accused of killing 4 young children in Uganda, has begun in Kampala, drawing national attention to a case that has deeply shocked the country. Onyum pleaded not guilty to all charges at the start of the proceedings, despite earlier claims by prosecutors that he had admitted to the killings during a prior hearing. He is accused of fatally stabbing the children at a kindergarten. Authorities say he was arrested on April 2nd while allegedly attempting to flee the scene. He now faces 4 counts of murder. The case has sparked strong reactions across Uganda, with concerns emerging about the pace of the judicial process. Some citizens fear the trial could become prolonged, reflecting broader anxieties about delays within the legal system. According to prosecutors, Onyum previously confessed to the crime, which involved children aged between 15 months and 2.5 years. Investigators say he claimed the act was linked to a belief that ritual sacrifice could bring financial gain, an assertion that has intensified public outrage. With these now, we head over to reports coming in across the globe. Negotiators from the United States and Iran may return to Islamabad later this week to resume efforts to end the war, even as tensions escalate following Washington's blockade of Iranian port. Sources familiar with the discussion say both sides are considering reconvening before the end of the week, after weekend talks in Pakistan ended without a breakthrough. A proposal has already been circulated to both governments to send delegations back for another round of negotiations, with Friday through Sunday left open. Despite the diplomatic setback, indications that dialogue could continue helped calm global oil markets, with benchmark prices slipping below $100 on Tuesday. The latest round of negotiations marked the highest level engagement between the two countries since Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution. Their collapse raised concerns over the fate of a fragile two-week ceasefire, which still has about a week remaining. U.S. President Donald Trump said Iran had reached out and expressed interest in a deal, but maintained that any agreement must prevent Tehran from possessing nuclear weapons. The conflict has already disrupted global energy flows. Since the war began on February 28 between the United States and Israel on one side and Iran on the other, Tehran has effectively restricted access through the Strait of Hormuz, allowing only controlled passage. The waterway had previously carried nearly a fifth of global oil and gas supply. In response, the United States military announced a blockade to get in shipping traffic in and out of Iranian port. However, nearly a day after the move, there were no confirmed reports of direct enforcement actions. Shipping data showed 3 tankers linked to Iran passing through the strait on Tuesday, though none were headed to Iranian port. The blockade has deepened concerns over global energy security and supply chains. The International Energy Agency has got its focus for both oil supply and demand growth, warning that the conflict is weighing on the global economy. Key United States allies, including Britain and France, have declined to participate in the blockade, but signaled willingness to support a future multinational effort to secure navigation in the Strait of Hormuz when conditions allow. French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer are expected to convene a virtual meeting on Friday to discuss such plans. China, a major importer of Iranian oil, criticized the blockade, warning it could escalate tensions further. Now, on the diplomatic front, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said progress had been made in clarifying areas of possible compromise, but significant gaps remain. Washington continues to insist that Iran relinquish enriched nuclear material and accept strict verification measures to ensure it is not pursuing nuclear weapons. Although Tehran showed some movement during negotiations, officials say it did not go far enough to secure an agreement. Meanwhile, the ceasefire has largely held despite continued threat and strong rhetoric from both sides. The U.S. paused its joint military campaign with Israel last week amid rising domestic pressure and concerns over surging energy prices. Iran, on the other hand, has warned that any threats to its port will trigger broader retaliation across the Gulf, raising fears of further escalation in one of the world's most critical energy corridors. Now, also tonight, Pope Leo XIV has signaled he will intensify his campaign against global conflict, brushing aside criticism from United States President Donald Trump and reaffirming his commitment to peace-focused diplomacy. Speaking to reporters during a flight to Algiers at the start of a 10-day tour across 4 African countries, the pontiff framed his mission as a moral response to rising global violence and humanitarian suffering. He emphasized dialogue, multilateral cooperation, and non-violent resolution as central to the Church's message. The Pope also warned against the misuse of Christian teachings, stressing that religious doctrine should not be weaponized in political or ideological dispute. His remarks come amid escalating tensions over the U.S.-Israeli war involving Iran, where he has emerged as a vocal critic in recent weeks. Over the weekend, he renewed calls for an end to hostilities, describing war as a destructive force with devastating consequences for civilians. Meanwhile, President Trump, in a social media post late Sunday, sharply criticized the Pope, questioning his stance on foreign policy and domestic security issues. The comments appear to be a direct response to the Vatican's opposition to both the conflict and the administration's hardline immigration policies. Despite the attack, Pope Leo XIV maintained a measured tone, avoiding direct confrontation while reiterating the need for global leadership rooted in peace building. He underscored the human cost of conflict, pointing to widespread suffering and the loss of innocent lives as justification for continued advocacy. I will see that the visit to Algeria marks the first leg of a broader African tour, where the Pope is expected to engage political and religious leaders on issues including conflict resolution, migration, and interfaith dialogue. And with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. But before we go, a recap of our major headlines on Undaunted tonight. And tonight, Undaunted, with an explosion hits Bamenda's Nkwen market, raising fresh security concerns. Bamenda airport to remain operational after Papal visit, Bishop Nkea says. Also tonight, we saw Meme women protest prolonged power outage, demand urgent action. Also tonight, Biya signs law creating Office of Vice President, reform or succession plan. And on the African scene, Wadagni secures overwhelming victory in Benin presidential election amid low urban turnout. And in the rest of the news across the globe, US-Iran signal return to talks as port blockade fails to halt diplomacy. And that is all on Undaunted tonight, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of the entire Undaunted newsroom, we say thank you for joining. We leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.